Hello YouTube, I'm Tourman Brad and this is the beginner's guide getting started in Space Engineers. Now this is part 2. If you haven't seen part 1, subscribe to my page and check it out. Now in the last episode we configured the game the way we wanted it. We landed our drop pod on the Earth-like planet and we even got the start of a base built. Now in this episode I'm going to introduce you to the build planner, a much quicker way of building items in the world. Much easier. You don't have to remember how many of each component and you don't have to make multiple trips. When using the build planner, we're going to build the basic assembler and the refinery. Now if we get all that done safely, we're going to make a start on a very simple rover to get us around the surface of the planet, where we can go looking for some more ores. Instead of using just stone to get our ores and ingots and what have you, we can actually find iron ore and silicon ore, and we get a much higher yield from those. Now on your hotbar you can see we have on number 5, that is the basic assembler, and number 6 is the basic refinery. But I want to show you the building menu, which is where we go to find all the other things that aren't listed here. So if I hit G, there it is, and this is showing us everything that we can make at the moment. Now I want to make the basic assembler, and that's it right there. So if you look down here you can see it says build planner. If I drag that basic assembler into the build planner, my suit now knows that it wants to build the basic assembler. So if I go over to the survival kit and hit F, if I click on this button here, it says add components from build planner to production queue. So if I click on that now it's added in production all of the items that are needed to make the basic assembler. Now before I started recording, I mined quite a lot of stone and I've got that processing now, so we've got plenty of materials to work with. So I'm going to drag that to the end so it prioritizes the things in front. While it's processing the components, let's have a quick look at our hotbar. You can see we have the main 3 tools that we always use at the start, 1, 2 and 3. Number 4, I recommend always leaving that as a building block because it's one of the most common things that you're going to use. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 are things that you will need as you're crafting. 0 is nothing, so that's empty hands. If you just want to remove whatever's in your hand, you can just hit 0. Now if I want to customize what's in the hotbar there, I go into the G menu and we can say I want the basic assembler to be in number 5. Now it already was, but it's just to show you if it wasn't there, that's all you need to do. Now perhaps if I wanted a solar panel, I could drag the solar panel down to number 6. So if I come out of the G menu with escape and I hit 5, there is the basic assembler, and if I hit 6, there is the solar panel. Now it's almost finished processing all of those components, so how do we get those now into our inventory to place this down? Well, I'm going to select number 5, which is the basic assembler, and I'm going to place down where I want it to go. Now when I do this, you can see as we're looking at it in the air there, we have the yellow port there. Now that's where we'll access the workings of the basic assembler. And we want that to be visible because we're also going to use that to connect to the refinery, so the refinery and assembler will work hand in hand, but it's facing the wrong way. So if I use page up, page down, home end, delete and insert, I can rotate it round. And I'm going to rotate, I'll just use the page down there to rotate it so the port was facing out along the base that we've got going. Now I need to go and get the parts for that. If I click the middle mouse button or the wheel, it's telling me there all components were successfully withdrawn. So if I have a look now in the G menu at the build planner, you can see it's empty because we have all of the components that we need to build the basic assembler. So let's weld it up now. Now while it's doing that, the options we looked at when we were setting the game up, one of them was welder speed. If we'd increase that value, this process would be a lot quicker. However, we can upgrade our welding torch later on in the game to get a faster one. There's our basic assembler. Now we're going to do the same for the basic refinery. If I go into G, let's find the refinery, and if you can't see it, you can go in here and type in ref, and there it is. And I'm going to drag that down into number 6. And here it is in our hands. You can see this one has 2 ports in it, which is handy. And I want to join it to this other one on the base. Now if you look there, it's facing the wrong way. I'm going to use page down to rotate it, and you can see there's a port on either end. I'm going to put it that way. It doesn't matter which way around it goes as long as there are 2 yellow ports touching each other. Now I can go into the G menu and drag the refinery into the build planner, but there's another way of doing this. If I put my welding torch back on, walk up to this and click the right mouse button, it says components added to build planner, and we can check that in G. There we are, we see basic refinery. The next thing we can do is a quick step. Instead of going into here and saying to add the components to the build from the build planner to the production queue, that tells you there shortcuts, shift and middle mouse button will do that for us. So I could just walk up to this, hold down shift, tap the middle mouse button, and that's telling me all the components were put into production. So I think it's finished processing those now. If I do a middle mouse button, there we go. All components successfully withdrawn, so we can now finish the refinery. I've just gathered some more stone and I'm going to put it into the basic refinery. Now what happens with this one is we don't need to tell it to make ingots out of the stone. It'll just get on and break it down for us. And there we go. Now we can still keep using this one over here. We could have that running in the background while this one's working, doing something else. So let me show you something that's a little bit different now. With the previous system, we would just go in here, hit F, go into production, and choose what we wanted to make. But now with this new system, our assembler is buried behind the refinery. But if I go in through the entrance to the refinery and hit F, we've still got access to production. Although we can't see the assembler here, we can still click on production, and you can see there's a few more things being added to what we can actually manufacture. If we want to see the contents of the assembler, all we need to do is click on this square here, and now we can see everything that's connected in this system. And there's the assembler. It doesn't have any materials in it. So what happens if we tell the assembler now that we want some steel plate, but it doesn't have any of these ingots in place? So we'll go to production. Let's say I want 10 steel plates. Let's go back to inventory, and look what's happened. It's pulled the iron that it needed to make those plates. So the 2 machines will communicate with each other and share resources as necessary. So just a quick recap on the build planner. If I hit the G menu, find the item I want to build and drag it into build planner, I can then go to our assembler, go to this button here and add the components that we want to build to the production queue. Alternatively, if I place the block, I can walk up to it, hit the right mouse button, which adds them to the build planner, and for speed I can hold down shift and the middle mouse button to add them to the construction queue in the assembler. Now in demonstrating that, I've added 2 more refineries to our production queue. Now what if I want to get rid of those components that are in this list? If I decide I don't need them anymore, I can just right click on each of them and it removes them from the list. Right, I'm going to dig up some more stone, put it in this refinery and get ourselves some resources so we can make a start building a very basic rover. So I've got plenty of refined iron and nickel and silicon now, and I want to make a working area to build this rover. So I'm going to build a platform out from here with just using the basic blocks to give us somewhere level to work. Doesn't help that we're on the side of a hill. That should be enough space there, I would think. Let's make it one more. There we go. So we've got a nice platform there to work from, and this is the way that I like to build a basic rover. Now, I would normally load up my hotbar with all of the things that go into making the rover, but because we've got the progression system turned on, we have to unlock those things, so we're going to do it a bit at a time. Now, the first thing I like to do is place the landing gear and then build everything on top of that. Then we remove the landing gear so the vehicle drops to the ground. Now, the benefit of that is that it raises it up nice and high for us to work, and also it won't roll away and disappear off down the hill and explode. Now, if I hit 5, which is where I've got landing gear at the moment on my hotbar, you can see that this is huge. This is a large grid landing gear. That's not what we're after. We want the small grid version. You see these blocks being large grid, and our craft here is a small grid one. So a large grid landing gear is not what we're after. If I hit 5 again, it changes it to the small grid version. Now I'm going to wander over roughly somewhere over the middle of the building area and drop that down. There we go. So I'm going to weld that up now, and it should hopefully unlock some other things that we're going to need to build this rover. But if I start welding, you can see I haven't got all the components I need. So I'm going to right click, then I'm going to shift and middle mouse to put those things to production, and then just the middle mouse button by itself to withdraw them. And now I should be able to weld this up. So there's the landing gear down. I'm going to pop down a couple of blocks on top of that to raise the vehicle off the ground while I'm building it, and we can grind these down afterwards. I can't quite get on top for that one, so I'm going to use the jetpack to lift me up. There we go. Now I want to build this one roughly 10 blocks long. So we 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm going to put a block on each side just to spread the wheels out a bit to give us a bit more stability. So hopefully we don't overturn. If I go to G, start typing in wheel, yep, there we can see we have all sorts of choices of wheels. For this size rover, I'm going to choose a 3x3, but you can also see that there are 5x5 wheels. Now they're huge, and there are also large grid versions of these, so they're even bigger. Now this one also says wheel suspension 3x3 right. There is a wheel suspension 3x3 left. Now the only difference is that the tread will be the right way around if you use the correct wheel on the correct side. So I'm going to pull down the right hand side and the left hand side. I'll tell you what, let's swap those over. So the left's on the left and the right is on the right. There we go. And we'll place those wheels. So the left hand wheel is in number 5. I'm going to say that we're building, this will be the front. So this will be the left. And I'm going to point where I want it to go. Now the wheels are a little bit tricky. If you have a look at the graphic for this, you can see there's a larger sort of paddle at the top and it comes down thinner at the bottom. And if I go around it, you can see there's an elbow at the bottom with a large circle and a smaller circle lower down. That's actually the top of the suspension. So we want to use the page up and down and home keys to rotate that round the right way. Now this is always a bit fiddly. You just keep clicking them. You'll eventually get used to which one takes it which way. Now just click that and you can see it's also placed a wheel. We'll do the same on this side. Now I'm going to change over to the right hand wheel. So I've got that on 6. Go on there. It's facing the wrong way. Press every button in the world until you get it the right way. There we are. So we have our 4 wheels. The next thing we'll want on here is going to be a means of steering it. So let's have a look to see if we can build a control seat. So I'm going in here and I'm going to type in control. There we are. And here's the control seat here. Now the plus indicates that there are more than one version of this seat. So I'm going to drag that down. Don't need the wheels anymore. So that's now in number 5. I'm going to use my jetpack to get up and find where it's going to go. Now already I can tell it's not going to place it because it's in red. But let's see what it complains about when we try to place it. It needs interior plates. Now I can't use the right click method to load this into the build planner because I haven't got anything to right click on. So I'm going to use G menu, find our control seat and drag that into the build planner. Now I can still use shift and middle wheel to put that into production. While it's doing that, the next thing we're going to need is some power for this, and we want a battery. So G menu, and I'll start typing in battery. Now there are tiny little batteries, but they don't last very long, and there are slightly larger ones, and that's the one that we're going to use. I'm going to put that over the top of that wheel there, so we're in number 6, and let's find somewhere to put it. I'm going to put it roughly in the middle behind where the driving seat is going to be. There we are. And we'll add this to our build planner with the right mouse button. And then go to the refinery, middle and shift and middle wheel to set that away into production. So hopefully it's made all of the parts for the control seat. So I'm just going to middle mouse button on there, pull up the control seat with 5, get up to where I want it to be. We'll rotate it around the right way, just like that. Place it, change back to the welder and get it welded up. There we go, look at that. Right, let's see if it's finished with the battery. I know it hasn't because I can hear it still working there, but we'll take what we can. So that was the middle wheel again. There we go, we need 17 power cells. Middle wheel, cannot withdraw 11 power cells. So we're not far off. Now once this is welded up, this should be enough to get us going very, very simply. So let's start welding. So our battery's finished and it's now processing the parts for the wheels. And in building the battery, we've also unlocked some other things. I don't need to weld that one up because I'm going to grind it down shortly. So there you can see what I mean about the tread. Now if I'd used left on this side, the tread would have been pointing the wrong way. I think it's time to take it for a test drive. Let's get the grinder out and we'll remove these blocks at the bottom there. There we go. And there it is, ready to go. Now the battery, when you make it, comes with a small amount of power already in it to get you started. But Rovers don't use a great deal of power, so this battery should last a good while. I'm going to hit F to jump into the seat. Now I'm going to hit V so you can see the vehicle outside. If I hold Alt and the mouse wheel, I can zoom in and out and pan around and let go of Alt. There we go. Now I'm going to turn right and it knows to turn the wheels the correct way. Now if I pull back here, we're off. I'm going to zoom out a bit because it's handy to see where you're going. And this thing can get pretty fast. Now you can customize the speed that it goes. And there are quite a few other things like the, whoa, there's the first First explosion. That wasn't a good start. Did it survive? I don't know if it did. I think the control seat might be damaged. No, that was a bad start, but it's a test drive. This is just the raw machine, very, very basic, whoops, with no special settings or any adjustments made. Now, what I think we'll do, now that we've tested it and we know it works, is we'll make some adjustments to make it a bit more stable. The first thing we need is a gyroscope. Now, a gyroscope would have helped us out of that situation. When the vehicle went in the air and started to tip over, I could use the mouse to correct it. Now, it's not perfect, but it does make a big difference. The next thing we can do is we can change the maximum speed that it travels at. It's clearly going too fast. We can slow it down. We can also change the traction on the wheels to stop it from accelerating so quickly. You might get a bit of wheel spin, but it also means that if the traction is reduced, if we take a sharp turn, we won't just flip the car, rolling it. It'll slide a little bit first. Now that's not a bad thing in this sort of situation. So let's have a look at those settings now. While we're in the car, if I hit I on the keyboard, I can bring up the control panel for the vehicle that I'm in. And here we can see our wheels. Now each one of these wheels has quite a lot of settings, but I'm going to grab all of them at the same time so they all change at the same time. So select the first one, hold down shift, select the last one, and now whatever I do will affect all of them. First thing I'm going to do is change the speed limit from 180 kilometers an hour. I'm going to drop that down to about 60, give or take. The friction, I'm going to reduce the friction slightly as well, so it will slide a little bit. Now we've got height and strength and power and steering angle that you can play with. We'll do that another time. We don't need to touch that at the moment. So now let's try reversing. It's still very quick, but you can see there the wheels spinning when I push forwards and back. So that means it will slide a little bit when it's turning. So if I go fast, that's as fast as I can go. It's a lot safer. And if I turn, it's not trying to flip the car. Now I can use the space bar to put a brake on temporarily. So when I get back on here, just hit the space bar to slow it down. And I'm going to jump out and we're going to have a look at building the gyroscope. So in the G menu, let's type in GY. There's gyroscope. I'm going to drag it down into number 7. It's ready to build. It's green, so I know I have the starting components to build it. I think I'll just pop it at the back here. Now let's see if I can weld it up. Nope, everything's grayed out. So let's right click on it, go to the refinery and shift and middle mouse to put those parts to production. Let's test it out properly. It doesn't matter if we crash this one. I can always build another one. So what I'll do for the minute is I'm just going to boost the speed just for the minute. Put it back up there. And let's get this thing moving and see if we can get in the air so I can show you the mouse gyro. There. See how I could turn it slightly in the air. And there. Now you can also go forwards and backwards, so if it starts to nose down or nose forwards, you can pull it back the other way. There we are, just using the gyroscope to correct ourselves. Let's see which way it goes and see if I can correct it. No, that was fine. Yep. There. Now you've got to be pretty quick and you'll get used to it after a while. Ooh, just taking out a tree. Save the trees. Yeah, so I can push the mouse. Depends on your mouse orientation. You might have it, oops, might have it inverted. No, it didn't help me there. Oh dear. It does help, honest, having the gyroscope, but Well, if you enjoyed the video, please give a like. It doesn't cost you anything to do that, and it really helps me out by letting me know that you're enjoying the videos, so I know to keep doing them. If you want to see more of this sort of thing, you can subscribe to my channel. Please feel free to comment if there's anything else you'd like to see me doing, or anything you need some help with in any of the videos. Next time we're going to go exploring, and we're going to find some ores and do some proper mining, and then we'll be progressing towards, hopefully, making some sort of flying machine. What? Incredible flying machine? Yep, that's the plan. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.